Hey, what's up, everybody? This isn't exactly when I thought I'd be joining you guys next, but in case you're wondering, where are you right now? Um, this is another episode of Politics Live. I wasn't exactly sure when the next time I could do one of these lives, but the news has certainly dictated that I jump on here with you guys in this particular moment. Now, just so you all know, clearly I am not at home or not in my office where you often see me engaging in these lives. Um, I am actually in Cape Town, South Africa right now. It's about 11:16 p.m., which I don't know what time it is wherever you are, but I'm here because your girl has a birthday coming up in a couple of weeks. And my husband, the wonderful man that he is, has surprised me with this trip here to Cape Town. I've been to South Africa. I was last here in 2010 covering the World Cup, but I never made it to Cape Town, and he knew that. So he planned this entire surprise, got me here in Cape Town, and it's really been an incredible experience so far. So if you haven't gotten to South Africa, and this is my fifth visit to an African country, I've been to Kenya, been to Ghana, Seychelles, Egypt, and South Africa. So this is my fifth trip here, and so I'm excited to be here in the motherland. Um, and enjoying what is going to be a milestone birthday. Many of you already in the comment section, you comment on the hair. I'm going to give you the full backstory behind the hair, but I would just say this. There is something I'm going to drop on the internet in a couple of weeks, and then you'll understand why I decided to change up my hair. At least I'm going to do it for this month and maybe a little bit in the next month, and we'll see where it lands. I'm still trying it out. It's been a long time since I wore this type of hair, so I'm excited about the switch up because ladies notice every now and again we got to change it up, and just especially with me approaching this milestone birthday, I wanted to make sure that I did it in a way in which I'm sort of setting the tone for the next decade of my life. So thank you all. And thanks for all the happy birthday wishes. Really appreciate them. But the official day is December 21st. So right now it's Sagittarius season. So shout out to all my fellow Sagittariuses, or as they like to call it, Sagittarius terrorist, which is a label I actually enjoy, not because I feel like I am one, but if our reputation precedes itself, then it is what it is. Okay. One other housekeeping item before we dive deep into this Sherrone Moore thing. I want to make sure, as always, that I plug Spolitics Live, plug this YouTube channel, make sure that you click, subscribe, like, do all the things. Shout out to the people who have poured money into this page. I really appreciate you. And so I just want to make sure that I acknowledge your contributions, acknowledge your support, but I could always use more support. So make sure you click, subscribe, tell a friend, and yeah, and just continue to support. Speaking of YouTube pages, I recently, I think it's out today actually, it might have premiered like an hour ago. I was able to join Cam Newton on his digital show, Funky Friday. Many of you have heard about it. And Cam and I had a very wide ranging, honest, candid conversation about my career. I even asked Cam about his very strong opinions about marriage, not bad, but just he has had some strong opinions about marriage. So we talked a lot about relationships, my career, things he's going through. It was a really incredible conversation. This conversation was recorded, of course, before all this happened, and recorded before Philip Rivers was signed to the Colts. Signing a grandpa. I mean, this man literally has grandkids, and the Colts decided to sign him, a 44-year-old. All I have to say, and I'm gonna leave it alone, and maybe we'll discuss it at another time. But Colin Kaepernick, that I'm gonna just leave that right there because I kept hearing that Colin, by the way, who I know personally, Colin still trains like an NFL player. He's in amazing shape, and so it just further solidifies why this is a stain that the NFL will never erase in terms of giving Cam an opportunity to resume his career in the league. But real quick, before I dive into all this Sherrone Moore stuff, I just wanted to make sure that I played a little clip. Let's see if I got it here, um, from my interview with Cam Newton, which again I thought it was something that was um, I'm really proud of the conversation that we had, and I think a lot of you are going to enjoy it. So make sure that you go to his YouTube page, check it out, and support. And so here's a little bit of what you can expect from that interview. Being able to host SportsCenter is a dream job.
No, for sure.
It just wasn't my dream, and so I left it.
Me, I'm super fly, super duper fly, super duper fly.
Especially after the controversy with the whole Trump thing, it's almost like they wanted the viewers to not be reminded that it was two Black people hosting this show. Like, I got tired of that shit. I'm not doing these cultural clashes with y'all no more.
I sit on hills like Lauren until the rain.
When we criticize other Black people, we gonna see a different kind of smoke. Somebody like Stephen A. Smith, he is very friendly with people who are very anti-Black. Mm-hmm. Questions are gonna be raised.
To have me, yes, you lucky, yes, you lucky.
Why do you think you're not playing football?
I care about making sure that I impact and empower people who look like me, who think like me, and who are moved by what I do.
Since you left, have any teams reached out to you? I'm certainly not trying to make you uncomfortable because I know that's
I'm not. No,
I know that's your colleague.
I'm just letting you.
Wow, that was crazy. I don't know what happened there. Seems like we had a little technical difficulties here all the way in Cape Town, South Africa. So I appreciate you all sticking with me. That was so strange. Just like the internet just went out for a second. They said, you know what? Maybe people should just go to YouTube themselves. But as you see, that was part of my conversation with Cam Newton, which is now available on his YouTube page for his show, Funky Friday. So, all right, let's get into it. Sherrone Moore. As many of you all know, he is the now former head coach of the University of Michigan. He's the first Black coach in their history. And in case you haven't heard the latest, he has now been arraigned. He is facing charges for stalking and home invasion. And I have to say this is one of the most stunning and epic career falls that I have ever seen. Like, there's a lot of scandals that have happened across college sports, but this one is something that I think caught everybody by surprise. I'm not surprised that Sherrone Moore doesn't have a job because I'll be honest, and this has nothing to do with the scandal that was unleashed. I'll be honest, my thinking was, especially after they lost to Ohio State, you see Ohio State once again competing for a national championship. They're coming in as the reigning champions. I think it's very clear, even though Michigan football won the national championship a couple of years ago, I think it's very clear that there is some distance between the programs, and that distance has been amplified since Michigan won the national championship. Now, I'm from Michigan, I'm from Detroit, familiar with how things operate at University of Michigan, and I knew, especially seeing the team this year, that Sherrone Moore was going to be on thin ice. And there was part of me thinking that they were going to make a move this year, and this is just purely for football reasons. But once that period passed where you saw a lot of people getting fired and or leaving their programs, I thought, okay, he is going to get another year, but I wasn't even convinced it was going to be a full year because my thinking is if Michigan gets off to a slow start, if they don't look better, they're going to try to fire this dude. Here they have paid an NIL money, Bryce Underwood, the quarterback from Michigan, who was the top high school quarterback prospect in the nation. 12 million NIL dollars was given to him to get him to switch from his commitment from LSU to Michigan. And I think it's safe to say, or fair to say rather, people expected more from him in this offense. And you've seen it in flashes, but not with the level of consistency that one would expect. So I thought that Sherrone Moore's job was on the line anyway. Then comes the news out of the blue that he is fired for an inappropriate relationship with a staffer, somebody who was on his specific football staff. And if you believe the reports, I believe they said that she was an administrative assistant, to him. Then he's fired for having an inappropriate relationship with her. That's one term. And of course, we have seen this throughout college football. These kind of scandals have definitely happened. Then the second layer of this is now the criminal aspect, where Sherrone Moore allegedly went over to this young lady's house that he's been having this affair with. And we found out through the arraignment, he's been having an affair with her for years. This isn't just some spur of the moment, one night we late in the office, staying late at the office or whatever, and at work, I looked in your eyes, you looked into mine, and then next thing you know, it's popped off. They have been dating for years. And Sherrone Moore, in case you don't know, is married with 3 children. All right. And so this inappropriate affair gets revealed. And Sherrone Moore allegedly, got to use that word, allegedly went to this woman's house, broke into her house, and used a butter knife and some scissors, and he threatened to kill himself. And he told her, according to a quote I read that Dan Wetzel reported, that he told her, I think this all came out in the arraignment anyway, that this was her fault and she had blood on her hands for apparently cooperating with the administration about and telling the truth that these two have been having an affair. Now, what's really interesting is the context. There's a lot here, a lot to unpack. So I'm going to play these comments that were made by a Michigan historian, John Beacon, who is as plugged in as anybody is to the University of Michigan, how they operate. He has a lot of sources. And here's him being interviewed by Fox 2 in Detroit, talking about how we got to this situation. Take a listen.
Dialed in to Michigan athletics than John U. Bacon. He's a Michigan historian, also a best-selling author. By the way, his new book, Gales of November, The Untold Story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, is going to be number 7 on the New York Times bestsellers list, the 6th consecutive week of being on that list. John, congratulations. I know you're very busy on that book tour, so thanks for carving out some time with us here to talk about this situation at Michigan. John, first and foremost, what do we know right now? Why is Sherrone Moore at the Washtenaw County Jail?
Well, to work it backwards, he and this employee at the Michigan football building were investigated by the University of Michigan this summer, and both denied any relationship. But that story changed yesterday morning when she went on the Hill, as we say, the administration office, with the receipts, the text messages, the emails, documents, and so on, laying out the details of their relationship and the conflicts thereof. And that, of course, resulted in Sherrone Moore being fired. The Regents and the president had enough. Ward Manuel himself fires Sherrone Moore sometime after noon yesterday, one-on-one in their office. After that, this is where we're getting to your part. He broke into the employee's home in Pittsfield Township, which is between Ann Arbor and Saline, Michigan. Grabbed a knife, apparently, and threatened to harm her and harm himself. And that's when he became into protective custody in Michigan. So that's where that one stands.
And John, you have reported as well that right now, currently, he is being surrounded by mental health professionals as well. Is that where we sit right now?
That's correct, and should be, obviously. So that is obviously a serious matter. The next matter for Michigan, of course, is going to be the status of athletic director Ward Manuel, because they're going to need to hire a football coach. It will not be internal. There's no one prepared on the staff right now for that role. If they go externally, then you need an athletic director to hire that person. And the question is, will that be Ward Manuel or somebody else?
All right. So now you guys are all caught up. As I mentioned earlier in this broadcast, he was arraigned already, and this has become the biggest story in all of sports. And some might even say even bigger and beyond sports, because I've seen this on CNN, I've seen it on NBC, I've seen it on all the major networks, where this has become the most talked about story of the moment. So there's a few things here. Number one is, I think we're all in agreement that this was unacceptable. This was beyond egregious, and all of the responsibility, because I feel like I got to say this for some of y'all and say it for the cheapskates. The only person responsible for being in this situation is Sherrone Moore, because nobody told him, especially since U of M, I just want you guys to understand this. U of M has a very clear policy about engaging in inappropriate relationships with staffers. The reason it's inappropriate is because of the power dynamic. He is the head football coach at University of Michigan. She is somebody who is a subordinate. And as we later discovered, thanks to internet detectives, actually it wasn't internet detectives. Let me walk that back. I just don't recall who reported it. But as we found out from last year to this year, sis got a 55% raise. Okay. So that's why these relationships, this is why universities discourage them, and why at a lot of places, this is considered a fireable offense. So we need to understand that what he did was a fireable offense, and he's the one solely responsible for this. The other part of this is the University of Michigan themselves. Now, according to them, they have conducted 3 investigations after hearing about there was something going on between him and this woman. And I think a lot of us are asking the same question, is that what was it that changed? Because listen, we're not stupid. Okay? If you have to investigate somebody that many times, something that should tell you that's not right. And there's a report in the Wall Street Journal that there were donors and boosters who hired a private detective to look into whether or not these accusations were true, whether there was any truth to them. And I can tell you that covering college sports, I covered college sports, specifically the Big Ten, for 6 to 8 years. And winning covers a lot of issues, winning covers a lot of controversy. Now, we saw what just happened with Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh left as soon as he got an NFL offer, and he left the program. While he didn't leave it in bad shape, he certainly left it under a haze of a level of controversy, and there was questions about his unethical behavior. But the reason they were willing to ride with Jim Harbaugh is because they win a national championship with them. And I think from a optic standpoint, and him being a Michigan man, being a former player there that's very celebrated, having success everywhere he's been, from San Diego State to San Francisco, having that kind of success allows you a long runway. So basically, the more successful that you are, the more you allow to fuck up. And even though Jim Harbaugh, the NCAA investigation into whether or not Michigan cheated when they had the whole sign stealing controversy, he was able to escape that because of what the team looked like, and for that matter, the protection that he had within the university. And so that's why this is not treated or handled the same. Because I think most of us are smart enough to know that if Michigan had beat Ohio State this year, especially given that Ohio State was in line and in position to play for a Big Ten championship, they're among the favorites to win it all. If they beat Ohio State this year, I don't even know that we're having this conversation, which to me says everything about the priorities and what universities value. All right. And so there is that question about why did Michigan, if they had this kind of suspicion, how did he last this long? And I think that's a very fair question. But we know that there was a lot of people in Michigan's inner circle and their administration, among their boosters and donors, who were just out on my man, regardless if this investigation pops up or not. And so that's why I said earlier that I think he was going to have a hard time keeping his job. But now that you're doing investigations, and now that you have a woman who's willing to come forward, and by the way, people, she came forward with receipts, okay, text messages, all those things. And so when she was ready to say and admit that they were having this affair, and if you believe the reports, it was engineered. The reason why she came forward is because, and this probably wasn't the smartest move, but if it's anything that we have learned from what his behavior has been, I'm not so sure, as they say, if sense was common, everybody would have it. But per reports that I have read, apparently, after giving her some hush money, he fired her. thus giving her an incentive to make sure she dropped a dime on him, allegedly. Okay. And when you are in these kind of imbalanced power dynamics and you're having an affair at work, by the way, people, this is a professional environment. And I know many of you in the chat are saying, well, cheating's not illegal. It's not illegal. But when you bring that to your job and your job has specific policies against this exact thing, you are asking for exactly the outcome that he received. And I don't feel sorry for Sherrone Moore at all because he is at fault for creating this situation, making it worse by trying to cover it up. And now he's stuck like Chuck. And I know a lot of people have tried to, there's been some things said about like, oh, this is why brother shouldn't deal with white women. Well, one, he's married to a white woman. Okay, they have 3 kids together. And this is, white women, the downfall of the black man, which is absolving him of responsibility. Because one thing that men in powerful positions learn the hard way is when you're going to engage in this level of unprofessionalism and unethical behavior, you better make sure you cheat with somebody who got just as much to lose as you do. And she ain't have nothing to lose. They're not on the same level. He's the football coach, the first black head football coach at University of Michigan. He has everything to lose. So just why? What's the upside in doing this on your job? And so we can't give him that pass of trying to make this into something that he was somehow a target, that he, like he just slipped and fell into a 2-year affair. That's not how that happened. He consciously made the decision to do this and keep doing it and keep continuing it. Every time he was with this young lady, he was making the decision to put his job on the line. And there's only one person who is responsible for that, and that's him. Because for me, I put the onus on the person with the most to lose. That's who bears the responsibility for this. And so to make it seem like he was somehow trapped into having an affair in an inappropriate relationship that you, again, people know will result in your firing, you're just a dumbass. And there's just really no way to sugarcoat this. Now, of course, being a Michigan State grad, I had to go through the whole, well, not me personally, but obviously my university is familiar, having just went through this with the Mel Tucker situation. Mel Tucker, Michigan State gave him a $90 million contract. He winds up being fired for an inappropriate relationship that he had with a vendor, a woman named Brenda Tracy. You want to talk about fumbled bags? Yeah, him and Sherrone Moore, they right now are first ballot Hall of Famers in the Fumbling the Bag Hall of Fame over some stupid shit. It's these two. So I didn't feel sorry for Mel Tucker either. And it's because of the same thing. You have everything to lose. What are you doing? But we have seen, it's a reason why there's the old adage that it's undefeated. And you know what I mean when I say it's undefeated. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And so when you get these men in positions of power who, because of the power they have, then begin to think that they can get away with anything, this becomes, if you are not disciplined, if you're not mature, if you don't have character and integrity, this is and can be a very toxic cocktail for you to mess around and fumble a really great career opportunity. Now, I'll be honest, I was skeptical of Sherrone Moore for some other reasons. When he first took over the job at University of Michigan, he goes, by the way, he was the offensive coordinator for Michigan when they won the national championship. And he was, of course, getting the position that he got, naturally asked about being the first Black coach in Michigan's history, which, despite the fact that we know that there's clearly a number of Black players, I think I'm pretty sure the majority of Black players, or the majority of players that are college football players, we know that most of them are Black. But yet, when you look at what is the makeup of athletic directors, head football coaches, he, that has been a difficult struggle and a difficult sort of career canvas for Black coaches to penetrate. Is that, yeah, you have Marcus Freeman, you have Sherrone Moore, you have some others that have been able to get these head coaching positions. But I think when you look at the history of college football, Black head coaches have had quite a struggle. And some have even suggested that at some point, maybe college football should develop a Rooney rule. That's neither here nor there. So, there's some awareness there that this hasn't been an easy road for Black coaches, period. So when when Sherrone Moore has been asked about what that means, I found his answers to be disappointing, to say the least. But nevertheless, it was this answer right here that he gave to a question. Um, in talking about how Black quarterbacks are still perceived and some of the struggles that they face and the stereotypes, he was asked about Jalen Milroe, the former quarterback at Alabama. Supposedly, Bill O'Brien told Jalen Milroe that he should switch positions, which is a common refrain we've heard in football, that there are Black athletes who play quarterback who were often told change positions because there was this prevailing stereotype that Black men were not suited to play quarterback. We've come a long way. Obviously, you see what the NFL looks like. More than half of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL are Black. Clearly, we've seen there's been tremendous growth in this area in college football. But nevertheless, Sherrone Moore was asked about Bill O'Brien saying this to Jalen Milroe. And here's what he said. He said, really, I don't see color. That was the first thing out his mouth. Asked about how Black quarterbacks are stereotyped, the first thing out this dude's mouth is, I don't see color, which we know is a lie. You are a Black man in America, the first Black coach at University of Michigan. And you come out the gate and say, I don't see color. Then his second statement was, my wife is Caucasian. Homie, no one asked you about your wife. Not a single person. My kids are mixed. I deal with Black, white. I've lived in Kansas where you could be in the house with the door open at 12, and in New Jersey where you have to be in the house by 6 o'clock. What has any of this got to do with Jalen Milroe and him having a white coach tell him to change positions? I mean, for a Black man to say, I don't see color, and I know that there are white people out there who were amening these comments, saying like, oh, it's nice that, somebody doesn't talk about race and all that kind of stuff. We live in America, people. The entire structure, hierarchy, societal conditions in America are all race related, all of them. If you say you don't see color, you lying, because you do. And just because you may not be out here using the N-word or slurring people or personally discriminating against people, that doesn't mean you don't understand the hierarchies of race in America, because they're there. We have to live them every single day. This entire country was built on racial hierarchy. That is not controversial. That is simply history. We live in a white supremacist system. This is a fact. So for a Black man who has had the experience of being Black in America to say, I don't see color, bro, what? And that's when I was like, oh, this dude's a goofy. He's a goofy. And listen, of course, being a Michigan State grad, I naturally never want Michigan to do well at anything. All right. I don't care if it's a football game, a Snickers eating contest. If the fate of the world depended on me rooting for Michigan, I tell y'all, we had a good run. That's how much I don't like the University of Michigan, because I'm a Michigan State Spartan. But there was a part of me, much like I hate Notre Dame in the same way, grew up hating Notre Dame. But seeing Marcus Freeman, seeing Sherrone Moore in these very prestigious positions, Because a lot of times when Black coaches are hired, they're hired to the worst jobs, to the worst programs, because there's a reason those schools are looking for coaches. And so some of them don't inherit the type of situations. Rarely do they inherit the type of situation that those two, for example, inherited. Sherrone Moore became the head coach of Michigan after a national championship. That is an opportunity that rarely happens for Black coaches. So there's a real opportunity there for him to be successful, given how the um, giving how Michigan cares about football, how they invest in football. He's got a Black athletic director. Mel Tucker had a similar setup. Black athletic director, which most Black coaches don't get. And while when Mel Tucker was hired, certainly Michigan was on the downswing, but he had an 11-2 season, got us kind of back up again, then some more disappointment, whatever. But for Mel Tucker, this was a good job and a good opportunity. And so to get up there and fix your mouth and say you don't see color, like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? So I thought that was a very failed answer. But nevertheless, even despite my hatred of Michigan just on some petty fan stuff, I wanted to see Sherrone Moore do well just because of how we are often not in those positions. So let's just talk about the racial dynamics of this. I have found myself for some reason in controversy because I make the mistake of telling the truth and I make the mistake of trying to have racial conversations with people who have a limited understanding of race or just want to flat out live in denial about race in America at this current moment. So this was something that I initially, you know, put on threads, okay, in terms of my reaction. Here's what I said. It's I think it's pretty cut and dry. Oh, that's not the right one. It's this one. Sorry, guys. Okay. Now, after, of course, now initially, I ain't gonna lie, I got a couple jokes off, but this is before that anybody knew that Sherrone Moore was actually in jail. So I said that previously, and I had to remind all the U of M fans, like y'all had all them jokes about Mel Tucker. Now look at you. We still got to hear Mel Tucker jokes. So I hope this teaches y'all. Hey man, that karma come knocking no matter who you are. So at any rate, I put this on threads. Do I think Sherrone Moore is a cornball? Before we start painting his firing, Mel Tucker's and Ime Udoka's fired, of course, when he was with the Celtics, that was part of a inappropriate relationship as some kind of indictment of Black male coaches. Let me remind you of the following names: Hugh Freeze, fired for scandal at Ole Miss; Bobby Petrino, infamous motorcycle accident where he nearly killed himself and the woman he was having an affair with, a 25-year-old that worked in his office, and wind up in one of the most disgraceful situations possible. Rick Pitino, also scandal at Louisville, which you all can look up in Google. Mike Price, same thing. Something with a strip club, from what I remember. Sometimes these blur together, among others. The difference to me is in who gets a second chance to be a head coach. And you can guess who usually gets another chance. So I wasn't even saying that Sherrone Moore deserved another chance. I mean, to me, whatever consequences he gets, he gets. It is what it is. But the one thing that does happen is there is this idea that when it comes to Black people, the actions of one represent and indict the many. So even though I listed the number of white coaches who have been involved in scandals, no one is saying that white coaches have a propensity to be liars or cheaters or unethical, despite the numerous scandals they've been through. I'm not saying that either. But what I am saying is that white people are able to have their actions judged individually in a way that Black people never are. And for that, naturally, I got called a racist, and people saying that I said that Sherrone Moore was fired because he was Black. I literally never said that. And so that's why I said I make the mistake of sometimes speaking as if everybody has the same comprehension level. And the reality is that some of the people absorbing the information are still people who read with their fingers. The type of people who the teacher used to hand them their test back face down. And so, yeah, naturally, people are looking at him and Mel Tucker. And I realize Ime Udoka, clearly he's the coach of Houston, which is why I use the word usually, meaning historically, typically, those guys are given a lot of chances. It's a lot of excuses made for their behavior. Art Browse is coaching right now. Art Browse, who covered up sexual assault at Baylor, is coaching right now. And that wasn't the first job he's been offered. Art Browse there have been other places that have tried to get Art Browse back into the fold. And so when it comes to scrutiny, consequences, I don't think it's any question that is often a differing and double standard. But there's a specific idea with Sherrone Moore that I want to reject. And that is this idea that his actions in any way reflect Black male head coaches, because they don't. I heard some comments that my friend, former colleague Ryan Clark had to say that got a lot of people reacting. So I'm gonna play them for you right now and then react on the other side.
Sherrone Moore point of view, you have to look at his failures as well. He failed, if these things are true, he failed his family. Yep. He failed the young men he was in charge of leading and coaching. And he also failed a community of coaches who would love to follow him to get an opportunity to coach at a historically great university like a Michigan, to be amongst the names of the Yost and the Schembechlers and the Lloyd Carrs. That was the opportunity that he had that he failed at. And we also have to think about this young lady who was a subordinate and what these accusations or what these actions will do to her for the rest of her life. And so now if you're Sherrone Moore, who was the first African-American head coach at the University of Michigan, there's also a community of coaches that would love to follow in your footsteps that will be partly judged because of your actions. He does have to own that. He does have to, at some point, acknowledge that. He has to be held accountable for that, whether these things are true and someone was after him or not. And so if you're Michigan, you're truly coming from two head coaches in a row, in Jim Harbaugh and also Sherrone Moore, that has let the university down in some way. It is not the level of excellence that we expect from that position that has a responsibility. You know, in Romans 3:23, right, it says, all have fallen short because of sin and fallen short of the glory of God. So Sherrone Moore will be and will have an opportunity to be given grace by his family, by Christ, but he won't get a Bobby Petrino rebound, right? He will be treated like Mel Tucker. He will be treated like Michael Haywood, who in 2010 was supposed to be the next head coach of the University of Pittsburgh. So I just don't think we could skip over how serious this situation is for Sherrone Moore and the decision-making, this situation he put himself in. And so going forward, you can't just bring in a coach that's great at X's and O's. You need to bring in a leader of men. You need to bring in a man that these young men can look at and model certain aspects of their life afterwards. And I don't know who that is. Is it a Jed Fish?
All right. So this is where I understand the point that Ryan was trying to make. And this is where he's right and wrong, where I would give him just a little bit of pushback. As I pointed out, we have certainly, like, we're not stupid in this society. We see it all the time. Black people, the worst of us, becoming the litmus test for everybody else. All the Black people know when there are certain crimes or situations that take place, we sit there and we pray that somebody Black is not involved. Or I remember when January 6th happened, all of us in the group chat, few of us in one of my group chats, we were saying, please God, don't let anybody Black be seen scaling the Capitol. And that's the mentality that we have adopted. The problem is, it is very much a white supremacist talking point. This idea of collective community responsibility is one that pushes the narrative of inferiority of Black people, as in everything and every way we are viewed is based off what is wrong with you Black people? Why can't you get your community together? We have 40 million Black people that live in this country, but yet we're the only ones who are considered to be collectively responsible for each other. Now, I understand from a community standpoint because we are in community, and this is partly of how many of us have been raised is to be in community with each other. I get that. But the downside is that because we are judged that way, it then becomes the justification to demean, dehumanize, and disrespect us. You know, I know people get tired of hearing about how everything goes back to slavery, but everything really does go back to slavery in this particular sense. One of the narratives they tried to sell with slavery and why and how they tried to justify enslaving Black people and enslaving Africans was to say that we were savages and not intelligent enough to live on our own, even though they stole us from communities and kingdoms where we were not only living on our own, but among some of the most advanced societies that there is. So this narrative has been planted throughout because the only way our treatment could be justified is if you made people that we weren't human to begin with. And we've seen this through the Three-Fifths Compromise, through literally every part of American history, that's always been the justification. As part of that justification, if they're judging all of us by the actions of the few, then it makes it that much easier to say, oh, well, Black coach is not going to get another job at University of Michigan because of what Sherrone Moore did. Things that would never be said about white coaches because they can mess up and pivot and do as much damage as possible. And it's never considered to be a collective representation of the entire group. So what I want Black people to start doing is we need to stop rejecting that. We need to start, I should say, we need to start rejecting that narrative as well. Sherrone Moore, you know who Sherrone Moore fucked up his life. He didn't fuck up mine or anybody else that was Black. No Black coaches. He did not fuck up their lives. He made all those decisions on his own. And that's how he will be judged, not just professionally, but also criminally. All of those decisions he made himself. This ain't got nothing to do with no other Black coaches. This has nothing to do with whether or not Black coaches should be hired. Because here's the thing, as I pointed out, I don't know off the top of my head, and maybe I'll look this up before this conversation is over. I don't know off the top of my head how many Black head football coaches there are in college football. But as I mentioned, considering the struggle that Black coaches have had to even get in those positions, to give the situation with Sherrone Moore, to make that an excuse for people not to hire us, is preposterous. They wasn't checking for us anyway. So there was nothing for him to destroy, given how difficult it already had been. And I know some of you will say, well, this would just make it more difficult. Again, it falls back into that same narrative of using these actions by certain Black people to justify the treatment of us. And I guess for me, I'm just going to reject that off rip and remind people like, nah, it's only one person he embarrassed and humiliated, or the only people he did, I should say, are his family, his children, and he disrespected himself and his profession. This is not our fight. This ain't got nothing to do with us at all. And Eric Martin, thank you for sharing this. 16 Black coaches. Y'all see how many jobs there is. So the actions of Sherrone Moore is not responsible for why that number is 16. That gets back to a much larger conversation about why Black coaches often aren't given the opportunities to lead programs. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with them having a system in place that often, especially when you have as many ADs that are not people of color, that are not Black folks, they're just not checking for Black coaches in that way. Now, every situation is different. I fully understand that. But this is not about what Sherrone Moore did and that becoming the example or the excuse that people will use not to hire these coaches. And so I hate that that narrative is going to sit in our community because listen, I haven't seen the conversations on social media. I can't even share what has been said on many of the group chats I am in, especially with a lot um, of former Michigan State Michigan State grads. Uh, you know, there has been this sort of collective, at least among us, like community disappointment. Like he went out that way, he embarrassing us. Like, nah, I'm just gonna reject that narrative. He ain't embarrassing nobody but himself, and that's it. That's it. So I'm not gonna let that narrative take hold any longer. Uh, this is an interesting comment I'm gonna get to. All right, this is from Vanessa. When will Black men live and learn and stop repeating the same mistakes? Yet they choose to play Russian roulette. So I don't even think this is a Black man thing. I think this is a power position thing. And why you routinely see men in power and some women in power too. So let me not absolve women, but it just happens far more frequently with men, is that there's a certain mix of elements that occurs. And I'm always a firm believer is like money doesn't make you, power doesn't make you. It makes you more of what you already are. And if it's true, based off what the authorities said in court, that Sherrone Moore was been cheating for the last couple years, you then, especially now, you got an OnlyFans model allegedly saying that he slid into her DMs a few years ago. If he is somebody who perpetually cheats, he was going to be perpetually cheating, whether he was the video coordinator, the offensive coordinator, or the head coach. The money and the power just made him more of what he already was, allegedly. So it doesn't matter. Um, so for me, it's not something that I would say is a feature of being a Black man in power, because all Black men don't behave that way. Some do and some don't. And so that's what I mean about us collectively feeling responsible for the actions of individuals, especially individuals that frankly, with the I don't see color, didn't seem like they was trying to be in our community anyway. So we really ought to hey, you got it? I don't see color up in the arraignment. Because I tell you what, it's a whole lot of people seeing it now. And how how you be treated in some instances and some parts of the story are definitely going to reflect that. So, and especially, and again, this is not a whataboutism at all. So I don't want people to take it that way. But we are currently living in a country where the president is a felon. So these lectures about Black behavior, I don't want to hear them, given what we see politically right in this current moment. So, yeah, and that's something else that tends to bother me is that people love to make it seem as if we're the only community that's often tasked with having to quote fix ourselves. That's why I hate that whole fix yourselves conversation. That's what I call it. Is like we we are often told that the only way that we deserve respect, deserve dignity, is if we fix our community. Nobody else is told that. We see every manner of different races doing all kind of, and it's individuals that do it within the race, not the collective as a race. We see individuals that represent other races doing foul shit all the time, and nobody tells them that the only way that they deserve dignity and that they deserve respect is if they fix their community. There's been an overwhelming number of white men who have been, or young white men who've been involved in tragic school shootings, and nobody's telling white people to fix their community. But we get told this all the time. Fix your community, and then maybe you'll be treated with some respect. Like it's all conditional. And so what I'm not going to do is sit up here and argue with other people about our humanity. I'm not doing that I'm just not doing that, period. 2025, 26 to the end of time, I am not doing that. So yeah. Now, as we impact the rest of this situation, I'll say this is, and this is an interesting comment. Folks coming for U of M because they fired him. Remember that he already lied to them twice. Correct. So I definitely don't want us to be in that vein of making excuses. It's like U of M was completely justified in firing them. Were they hypocritical on some level? Because you do wonder if that win-loss record looks different, if Michigan is not competing in the Citrus Bowl against Texas and say they are competing in the college football playoff, do they still pull the trigger and do this? You wonder. And that's really because of we've seen so many instances and situations where college football play or college football programs have been willing to excuse a lot of stink if they're in a position to win. You know, LSU just gave Lane Kiffin $90 million, even though we see what the track record is in his job, just because these programs want to win. And frankly, they don't mind if red flags, a lot of those red flags that people have turn into green ones real quick when folks want to win. So yeah, it's so funny because I see this comment often. It's like Jamel with fake blonde hair. Jamel is a hypothetical joke. You know what's hilarious of like how when I often see that comment, um, is that you can tell, like I said, this is why you can't talk to people who read with their fingers. White people think that they are the only race that has blonde hair. That's what's so funny about that to me. They've clearly never been to Australia, for example, where the Aborigines, who are people of color, have blonde hair. So no, white people didn't invent blonde hair. They are not the only ones that have like blonde hair. It's just the hair color. Like, why you tripping? I'm not trying to be a colonizer and I ain't trying to be close to white. Anybody who knows me knowing that ain't my thing anyway. So if you think white people own a hair color, I suggest you pick up a book, but maybe I wouldn't because it, it's such a dumb comment that if you picked up a book, you'd probably read it upside down. So that is what it is. Um, at any rate, as I mentioned to you all, I wasn't planning to, I didn't know when the next time I'd be able to join you here on Politics Live because I'm currently on vacation. I was definitely going to try to check in with you guys as time permitted. But time, uh, given this entire situation, it made it made it more pressing for me to do it because I definitely had a lot of thoughts about what happened, and I tell you, I just never would have anticipated that this would probably be the most scandalous by my mind. And time goes so quick. I don't know exactly. I'm trying to think of like other scandals that have happened this year, but for this to be the biggest story in sports, it never would have saw this one coming. Not surprised he was fired. I just never thought that he would be fired for this particular reason. Uh, Talked about this earlier. Wasn't Jim Harbaugh part of a scandal at U of M? Gave him a slap on the wrist because they were in the playoffs some years back. If you recall, Jim Harbaugh's last year, he was suspended for multiple games. And the reason he is because of the NCAA investigation. Hence why a lot of people suspected that Jim Harbaugh was going to leave Michigan sooner rather than later, given what the NCAA was investigating. Sherrone Moore, just so in case you guys forgot, was part of that scandal because he erased some text messages and basically it looked like he hid some evidence. That's why he was suspended this year and why next year he was also going to be suspended, I think, the first game. That was part of his NCAA punishment. So to some degree, again, it's amazing how the winning will cover stuff up. And thank you there for being a super sticker. I appreciate you, Rochelle. Hope I said that right. Uh, Anywho, checking in here now. I'm about to check out because it is after midnight here in Cape Town, South Africa. Gonna enjoy this vacation already. I don't know if any of you have ever been to South Africa, but it's a really magical place. Oh, one more thing before I go. Let me point out something else. Because as I mentioned, a lot of people have been in my DMs and you know, eh, commenting on threads and on Instagram saying that accusing me of saying that Sherrone Moore was fired because he was black, something I never said. And then I saw this before I sat down to talk to you guys. Now, and I don't know if you guys are hip to this game. There's a lot of blogs that are run by engagement farms who specifically take people, most often celebrities they know that generate a certain amount of outrage, traffic, and engagement. And they make up fake quotes and they put them on poster boards. That little poster board or graphic card that you see right there. By the way, that was another reason why I'm real skeptical. He was looking real funny in the light to me. Sherrone Moore is when he cried after he served as interim coach. I believe that was when Jim Harbaugh was suspended. He was just doing the most. Anywho, allegedly, this is a quote from me. They made this up. I never said this. There's no, if you guys see these type of quotes and it has somebody famous on them saying something that just seems really provocative, it's not true. And the only reason that they do this is to drive engagement. So now I got hundreds of people hitting me up saying, well, you said that he was fired because he was black. I literally never said that. So if you see this quote, it's circulating hard on Facebook, it's circulating hard on Thread. I never said that. It is fake clip farming. So I need you guys to stop falling for this. I've seen Angel Reese, man, they stay on Angel Reese. I've seen Caitlin Clark. They tend to target women and minorities because they know it's going to drive a certain amount of outrage. So once again, I didn't say this. All right. Now it's time for me to get back to my vacation. As I said, coming soon. And it may be about, let's see, I have 9 days, or actually 8 days, because over here right now in South Africa, it's actually Saturday. I have 8 days into my birthday. There will be a big reveal of something on my birthday. You guys make sure that you check it out. And, I'm having a lovely time. Enjoy talking to you guys. Y'all stay safe out there. And I'm sure, this situation, it's got more and more layers to it, especially as we see how this plays out criminally. Anyway, y'all take care. Y'all be easy. Thank you. And continue to hit like and subscribe on Spolitics, or not on Spolitics, excuse me, and continue to hit like and subscribe on this YouTube channel. Really appreciate y'all being here. Y'all take care.